Am I wrong for my reaction to my birthday present? I, 29 female, met Will, 30 male, 6 years ago when I moved into a new apartment close to university. He was my next door neighbor and offered to help me put together the flat pack furniture. We really hit it off and have been together ever since. Will was married right out of high school to someone who was not a very good match. They were young, dumb, and made a colossal mistake. Will recognizes how crazy it was to marry someone at 18, but at the time, they really thought it was a good idea. That being said, the breakup and the fallout was terrible. This was before I met Will, but it sounds like both sides were out to inflict as much pain as possible. Fortunately, there were no children or assets, but it was not a smooth process by any means. Will reached out to his ex wife relatively recently, about 2 years ago, to apologize for all of the pain he put her through, which I thought was quite nice of him to do. She also apologized for her actions, but both agreed that they did not want to stay in contact. However, coming out of it, Will told me that he had realized he never wants to get married again. This was a surprise to me, but I never really wanted the white picket fence, so no marriage didn't really bother me. I am happy just to be in a long term committed relationship. Recently, it was my birthday, and we had some people over for a barbecue. It was really lovely, but Will insisted we do presents in front of everyone. I haven't ever really done that, but I didn't want any issues with it. Everyone gifted me really sweet and thoughtful items, and it was a blast until I got to Will's gift. Will had been really bragging about how this was the perfect gift, and I had to save the best for last. It was a diamond tipped drill set. To be clear, I do not own a drill and have no interest in anything related to drills. My face fell, and Will burst out laughing, saying that the joke is that these diamonds are the only diamonds I could ever expect to receive from him. Get it? Because we aren't ever getting engaged. I was so humiliated. I excused myself and went into the house, and I suppose that everyone left after a while. Will tried to give me my real present later that evening, but the drill bits were only meant as a joke. But I didn't even open it because I couldn't understand why he was so cruel in front of all of my friends. Will says that I'm overreacting when I have another gift, and I agreed that we wouldn't get married. I feel really hurt, and Will doesn't seem to get it. Am I overreacting? Am I wrong for liquidating my daughter's college fund to keep our dream house? I, 50 female, lost my husband 4 years ago. I also have a 16-year-old daughter. My late husband left me everything and told me to trust his lawyer. My husband had worked for 20 years as a doctor and did some minor investing, so I inherited over 7 figures. A year later, I decided to list our home of 12 years and received an offer too good to refuse. With the inheritance as well as the influx of cash from selling the house, I decided to move my daughter and I to Malibu because we always dreamed of a home next to the beach, but my husband was exceptionally tight fisted and called homes there money pits. We found a beautiful home by the sea. I never personally handled anything regarding buying a home before, so I did not anticipate all the extra costs beyond the sticker price. But my daughter was so excited, so I decided to go for it. My late husband's lawyer was furious at my decision, so I decided to stop taking his calls. I ended up signing with a money manager who said we'd be passively earning 90% of what surgeons earn per year. But the money manager ended up tanking a lot of our investments. I took the dwindling money out and made my own investments, which made it worse. And long story short, because of all of that, I only have around $35,000 available to me now, not to mention our debts. With the amount available to me, I'm looking at only being able to pay 1 month of mortgage and upkeep, and then I'm basically out of luck until my business gets clients. However, the place where we do have a significant amount of money is a fund my husband started for our daughter. With the money there, I could prevent our credit cards from being shut down and not have to worry about the mortgage for many more months. So I ended up liquidating my dollar. Oh my god, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. So I ended up liquidating my daughter's college fund. I told her about it today and she was furious and said she cannot believe all of her dad's work is gone. She also said she won't be supporting me for retirement. So, am I the asshole for trying to fix my mistakes and trying to keep our house? Am I wrong for telling my parents and my husband that I don't want to name my daughter after the sister I never knew? Parents had a daughter before me, Summer. She was born with cancer and died when she was only 5 weeks old. I was born 2 years later, and her memory was very strong throughout my life. My parents weren't great parents to me because they were still in very heavy grief and it made our relationship complicated. I remember they cried on her birthday every year and they also cried on most of mine, and she was mentioned at every celebration. I remember for a while really wanting to hear more about her, but at some point all the mentions of her were too much. It felt suffocating and I felt less important. When they'd meet new people, Summer was the child they mentioned first and the one they talked most about. Someone would ask what grade I was in or how old I was, and they'd say Summer would be in fourth grade or Summer would have been 13 today. When I graduated high school, I asked that my parents not to mention Summer during the celebration. When I graduated high school, I asked that my parents not mention Summer during my celebration, and they were so angry at me for wanting Summer forgotten. I took some time from them in college but was racked with guilt and we ended up back in touch. I got married to my husband, Kale, last year and now we're expecting a baby girl. My parents brought up how amazing it would be for us to name our daughter Summer and my husband was 100% on board. He was pretty much agreeing before I had a chance to react. When I did talk to him, he was shocked I had any doubts and was ready to go full steam ahead. I told him I wanted our daughter to have her own name and I didn't want her to carry the weight of the Summer who never got the chance to grow up. And so was all her grandparents really wanted to talk about. He said he understood, but to think how loved our daughter would feel. And he knows I think Summer is a beautiful name, because I do, but the history. I told my parents I wanted my daughter to have her own name and they cried. They didn't really comment. They then asked if I was ever going to change my mind and I said no. But then my parents and husband were talking and wanted to try and change my mind. They brought a list of pros to me on why our daughter should be Summer and I told them I disagreed with the list. They argued back and told me Summer deserves to be honored. I said my daughter deserves to live her life as well. My husband said we would still be able to, and the name isn't that uncommon and that my sister would be the only person to think of. My parents told me to think of what my sister would want and how I love my sister and miss her every day. For some reason, that broke me. I did not want to name my daughter after a sister I never knew. I'm not totally sure what happened directly after I was so upset, but my husband and parents think I was cruel to say it like that. So, am I the asshole? I don't know the pain of losing a child, and I hope that I never have to experience that. But my sympathy ends when you start to neglect and emotionally abuse the living over it.
Am I wrong for refusing to offer my seat to a pregnant woman and asking an old lady to F off? I didn't outright say that, but I just couldn't think of a better way to phrase it. It's just the tone I gave off kind of gave that vibe that I was telling her to F off. I, a teen male, was traveling on a train. There were hardly spaces for anyone to sit, and a few stations later when a couple of people dropped off, there was breathing space, but there were no vacant seats left anyway. A pregnant woman entered the compartment and was apparently looking for a seat. Mine was the seat that was immediately visible when she entered, and the people who had adjacent seats next to me were much older. I wasn't sure whether I should offer mine or not, and I was just thinking through it when an older woman who was a little ahead of me said to take mine. As in, take his seat, there's enough space for you to sit. I didn't like that she was directly asking the woman to walk over and claim my seat, so I protested. I told her, hey, you can't just tell someone else to claim my seat. It's mine and I get to decide. Am I wrong for refusing to offer my seat to a pregnant woman and asking an old lady to F off? So she told the pregnant woman to take his seat, there's enough space for you to sit. I didn't like that she was directly asking the woman to walk over and claim my seat. So I protested and said, hey, you can't just tell someone else to claim my seat. It's mine and I can decide. That's when she asked me whether I couldn't see that she was pregnant and that as a young man I had the ability to stand. Everybody was eyeing me as if I had said something wrong, but I was just upset and I wasn't having the nonsense. So I told her that I'm not doing it, and she began to accuse me of not having respect for elders. A few others also asked me to give my space up, but I didn't listen. I told her she has to mind her own business and to not interfere in my affairs. I have every right to remain here. She looked extremely cross, and I probably did come out with a bad impression on everyone, but I didn't like her attitude. Am I wrong? Am I wrong for getting upset about my husband's sexist joke and telling his sister the truth? I'm a married woman with a husband who sometimes makes jokes that bother me. He says it's just a joke and that I shouldn't take it seriously, but in all honesty, I think he's being disrespectful. Like last weekend, we went to a family gathering at his parents' house. During a private conversation, he made a joke that really upset me. He said I should stay in the kitchen with the other women and make lunch for him and the men in the family because that was my role. He laughed at his own joke and expected me to laugh too, but I didn't find it funny at all. I got angry and told him that he was being sexist and that I wasn't his maid. Am I wrong for getting upset about my husband's sexist joke and telling his sister the truth? So after he basically told me I was a maid, he said I was overreacting and that it was just an innocent joke, and I have no sense of humor. I walked away from him and went to the living room, and that's when his sister saw I was upset, so she asked me what happened. I told her the truth and she was furious. She said her brother was an idiot and that she was going to talk to him, and she told the other women in the family what he said, and they were all outraged. They all criticized him for the sexist joke, and he felt embarrassed and tried to justify himself, but no one accepted. And when we got home, he sulked and said I shouldn't have said anything. Am I wrong for not showing up to my sister's wedding and calling her ungrateful? My 29 male sister, Ashley 27 female, just had her wedding yesterday, but I didn't attend. 2 years or so ago, when she was going through medical depression and required treatment, I helped her a lot. She didn't have the money and I was the one who paid for everything. None of the other family helped and neither did her friends. In total, I probably spent around $15,000 to $20,000 for her treatment. Much later, when she had gotten out of her issues, I once urgently required some money. So I asked her and she refused by saying she can't help and don't bother her again. Mind you, it was $600. And I knew she had the money because she'd recently got a job that was high enough and she would have been able to pay me. I was shocked considering how much I spent for her, and she continued to refuse, and I even asked whether she'd forgotten what I'd done for her. That's when Ashley asked me how can I say that I cured her when it was the medicine that worked, and that I wasn't the doctor. Am I wrong for not showing up to my sister's wedding and calling her ungrateful? I was shocked considering how much I spent for her, and when she continued to refuse, I asked her if she forgot what I did for her. Ashley asked me how I can say that I cured her when it was the medicine that worked and I wasn't the doctor. She said it was the medicines and the doctor that treated her and not me, but I didn't argue. When the wedding date was fixed, I told her I'm not coming, and she was surprised and asked me why. So I told her I have better things to do with my time than attend weddings of people like her. And just for context, the wedding was being paid for by our parents and the grooms. She got mad asking me what my problem was and said she wants everyone present. She also asked me not to insult her. I said she insulted me by brushing away everything I did for her and extremely ungrateful for not helping me with the money when she could have. I never even asked her back for the money I spent on her, but she had no humanity at all. In the end, I didn't attend her wedding.
My husband had a threesome with my best friend and his girl best friend, and I got so angry that I hooked up with his boss, but now I regret it. My brother had to have surgery and I wanted to be there for him, so I ended up staying about 2 weeks. I always knew that my best friend had a thing for my husband. She's admitted it multiple times, but I would just laugh it off because surely my married best friend wouldn't fuck my husband, right? I didn't even catch them. My husband's girl best friend is just that insane that she casually admitted it to me as I was cleaning the kitchen when I got back. I thought she was kidding. No, she wasn't. I asked my best friend if this was true over a phone call, and she at first denied it, but then broke down sobbing and fucking admitted to it. I was so angry I threw all my husband's shit into a big suitcase and tossed it in the front lawn. I locked the doors and piled a bunch of shit of it in front like a couch, an end table, etc. so the dumb fuck couldn't get in. Of course, when he got home from work and couldn't get in, he started panicking. He banged on the door and shouted for me to let him in. I just stayed upstairs with our dog and let him tire himself out. Eventually he left, and from what I know, he stayed the night at his girl best friend's shitty apartment. They probably fucked too, all while he was crying over me. Dumbass. After a few weeks of him blowing up my phone and pleading with me, I finally let him come home and we talked. He was sobbing and apologizing to me, said he was a sex addict and that he needed help. Told him that I want him to go to therapy as well as us going to couples counseling. He agreed to it without any fight. He slept on the couch while I slept in the bedroom. My best friend hadn't even made any moves to contact me or apologize for being a homewrecker that she is. My husband ended up having some sort of work dinner party a week or so later that he needed to attend and invited me. This was the first time he's ever invited me to anything like this. Pretty sure it's because none of his female coworkers know that he's married. Or I'm assuming that's the case because of how shocked they seem to meet me. At the dinner, his boss, who's in his 50s, was chatting me up. Newly divorced, and I asked him how that was. Made sure to ask loud enough for my husband to hear me. We ended up chatting all night, and my husband ended up scurrying off from the dinner table and told me that he was going to go home and told me to get an Uber home, clearly pissed off at me. Needless to say, his boss was shocked at how he treated me, and I couldn't help but to play the sad, lonely wife bit. It ultimately ended up in us going back to his house and hooking up. When I woke up that morning, I did end up Ubering home. Since then, his boss has sent flowers to our home, called me a few times, and my husband is completely aware of this, and now the regret is starting to sink in. The revenge felt nice, but now it's clear that it's eating at both of us. I'm going to find a lawyer and start the process soon. Also, I forgot to add that when we had our first therapy appointment, he never showed. He was going to head there after visiting his sister who lives just a few miles from us. I sat and waited in that office for over an hour before I just went home and saw his ass sitting on the couch texting on his phone. He knew that we had an appointment that day because I texted him multiple times about it. He had no intention whatsoever to fix this, give me closure, or start fixing his sex addiction. Part 2, my husband had a threesome with my best friend and his girl best friend, and I got so angry that I hooked up with his boss, but now I regret it. It's been a wild few weeks. We started the divorce process. Soon-to-be ex moved out, reluctantly may I add. He moved in with his girl best friend, now fiance actually, and they're expecting. It's his, I think. Girl best friend's parents found out what she did, and let's just say it's not going well. I told my best friend's husband everything. He didn't believe me at first, but after I started showing him all the texts, photos, etc., he just broke down. He kicked her out and she showed up with her shit, thinking I'd let her move in. Long story short, I had to call the cops and get her off of my property. I haven't kept in contact with the boss, honestly. He just bought me a few gifts, but I politely told him no. He was pretty nice about being rejected and told me it was worth a shot. My family found out shortly after I made the post. I found out many things since the process began. My husband was the cigarette of the office, being passed around by all of his female coworkers. Do you know how many apologies I've received? I'll be set for a lifetime on apologies. But I mean, seriously, why does an office have that much sex? Once the divorce is finalized, I'm selling the house and moving into something smaller. I hate big houses. I always like small spaces. I found a cute apartment that's a 1-bed, 1-bath. It'd be perfect for me and my dog. I know the divorce is gonna become nasty, especially with his girl best friend being his fiance now. We've already had to get a forensic accountant involved since he accused me of stealing his money and wiring most of it into my bank account. That was weird. Other than that, I'm doing good. I'm actually relieved and gonna start doing things that I love doing. I'm gonna get back into my book club. I'm gonna start exercising how I used to. I still exercise, but stopped doing it so much because he hated girls with abs. I'm gonna be me again. I hope he becomes him again and finds happiness. Truly. Also, to all the bros defending him, calling me a terrible wife, sending me death threats, vulgar messages, etc., I hope you all choke on soon-to-be ex's D while you're so far up his ass.